Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to an episode of my F1 22 My Team career mode. This is episode number 31 today for the British Grand Prix in Season 2. If you guys did miss the previous one at the Canadian Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. It was our return to the career mode after patch 1.08, and we saw some much improvement on that OP AI straight line speed. But what was unfortunate was the way that race ended for us. Not so much for this man, Alexander Albon, because we're now halfway through the season. The contract negotiation has opened up, and we're going to obviously approach Albon to re-sign. He's in good form despite what the focus says there, but that's because focus is just broken across the board. But 91 rated Albon. He's won back-to-back wins now from Azerbaijan to Canada. I really feel like we could have won the Canadian Grand Prix, but we didn't get the chance to because, spoiler, obviously, hopefully by now, if you haven't seen it, you went back and watched it, our engine failed. We didn't get any R&D points for that failure. Usually you might get some when a failure happens, but I guess to be fair, we are earning a fair amount of R&D anyway, as it is. But now the upgrades are getting quite large, so you're going to be seeing us buying fewer upgrades because they're bigger ones and they're going to take a bit of time to earn enough R&D. But yeah, we've got an MGUK failure there, and we are now very close on the engine components to having to take a set of grid penalties. I don't want to take it this episode though, because it is the home race. Our car on paper is the best car on the grid. We have won the last two races, obviously not in the hands of myself, but Albon has won the last two races, so clearly the car is there. So I want to give myself the best opportunity to do well at my home Grand Prix, of course. Now, it's been a bit of a bogey circuit sometimes for us. On this game, though, last season actually was an amazing race for us. We had that very audacious strategy of going long on the mediums, and in that very weird race where it was raining, but not raining enough for the wet tyres, we had a fantastic race here in Season 1 around Silverstone. So maybe on this game, Silverstone is going to be happy hunting grounds for us. And couple that with the fact that we've got a car that's won the last two races, is the best on paper in the R&D chart. I think I fancy myself for a very good result here. So we're not going to take any grid penalties. We're going to try our best to push them, until the next episode, Austria, where we can maybe do something there. And in terms of the R&D chart, like I said, we are still the best car. We've even actually gained a bit more in Red Bull with a small upgrade on the chassis there. McLaren make huge strides to now pretty much be level with Red Bull. So in an episode's time, McLaren could be the second best car, and Red Bull and Mercedes, the home of Verstappen and Hamilton, the two championship contenders right now, they couldn't even, both of them could be driving cars that aren't even the top two on the R&D chart. So it's a very intriguing season this is evolving into, and we're getting a few, different characters entering the zone. I mean, Ricciardo's already won a race anyway in this season, so McLaren already kind of did arrive a little bit, but now could they be even stronger with some big upgrades into their home Grand Prix? Of course, it's a couple of drivers and a couple of teams home Grand Prix, so everyone's vying for a good position. And of course, being the British Grand Prix, it's a little bit overcast and the threat of rain is around. There is a slight chance of rain this weekend. I think about a 15 to 19% both here on Saturday and Sunday, so that's why it's overcast right now. But as it stands, the rain is staying away for now, but who knows how it's going to shape up into the later sessions as we go on through this Saturday, and then of course also tomorrow and Sunday. I mean, Season 1 we had that very extraordinary race, so I wouldn't be surprised. But let's just see. At the moment it is going to stay dry for now, but it is very doom and gloom. The track will be a bit colder, maybe offering a little bit less grip out there on the circuit, despite us putting down the rubber as we go through the laps. I mean, the car feeling okay. Still at times I'm getting that weird feeling in the car mid-corner where it's quite stiff and the front end doesn't want to respond, but it's a little bit better at this circuit than it has been on previous races. Like I said, I think, personally for me, I feel like the handling model feels stiffer on street circuits where maybe there's slower corners. I think at high speed, the car is a little bit more complying, but at the same time, the tyre temps are also an issue, and I've noted that a lot of people have been saying on Twitter, and also some of you in the comments as well, the tyre temps are still a bit of an issue to deal with versus the AI. So the straight line speed may be fixed, but the cornering, sometimes the tyre temps may be a factor. But for us right now, we're doing the job of getting through the first 2 sessions, which are, pretty much just, hurdles for us to get through into the proper session that we care about, the top 10 shootout. Williams through with Kevin Magnussen, no Ferraris in sight, so that's a mega result there for Williams and K-Mag, the 2 Red Bulls, McLarens and Mercedes. So it is going to be a fight between Verstappen and Hamilton in terms of their championship fight. Where are McLaren going to feature? Because I really feel like with that massive leap up in the R&D chart, coupled with their AI drivers doing well, I think they could be quite up there and be challenging and ruffling some feathers. But here we are then on our flying lap in Q3, our one and only flying lap, because I'm going to try and save a set of soft tyres to have a fresh set for tomorrow, to try the same exact strategy as we did in Season 1, going from mediums to soft. So this is our one and only flyer to try and qualify as high as we can. It's an okay lap time ahead of Gasly, Russell right now, but 5/10 off Hamilton. And as we go to the end of this session, I am met with a massive shock, because Kevin Magnussen, of all people in the Williams, has just gone and got pole position. What? Kevin Magnussen in the Williams on pole by nearly 1.6 tenths to Sergio Perez. Albon up there in 3rd place. Verstappen and Hamilton in 4th and 5th. We're way down in P10. I mean, a second flyer, we probably could have improved, but would we have matched Albon? I don't know, but I mean, it wasn't a great lap in the end for us, but I feel like for sure as I went to black, as it faded to black to load into this results screen, I think there was a little bit of dodgy simulation times here because of how far off I am, but more so because I just don't know how Magnussen's got pole, but he has. I mean, whatever the case, he's got pole, he's done the lap time apparently there, and he's on the front row, and he will lead away this British Grand Prix. Now, this means I've taken a gamble. We've qualified P10, 10 places back from the front row, and I've taken the gamble, taken the hit to have that fresh set of soft tyres at the end of the race. I guess we'll find out if the gamble will be worth it. Let's go to the grid for the British Grand Prix.
We return once again then to the home of British motorsport and the birthplace of the Formula One World Championship. It's race day here at Silverstone, and it's time for the British Grand Prix. Straddling the border of Northamptonshire and Buckinghamshire, the 18 corners of Silverstone Circuit form the 3.6-mile beating heart of Formula One. It's been reinvented over the years, with Turn 1 now the fast right-hander of Abbey, but the magic of racing is as strong here as it's ever been. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Kevin Magnussen lines up on pole position, and Alex Albon lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Hamilton, Verstappen, George Russell and Ricciardo, Norris, Gasly, the owner driver and Oscar Piastri, Latifi, Perez. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty, Carlos Sainz and Tsunoda, Joe, Mick Schumacher, Felipe Drugovich and Charles Leclerc, Vettel, Ocon, Bottas, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And I'm joined once again by Anthony Davidson to bring you the lowdown for today's race. Why don't we discuss McLaren? What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
This is going to be quite an interesting Grand Prix for many, many reasons. Magnussen in a Williams on pole position, Albon alongside him because Sergio Perez has a grid penalty. So the man who's won the last 2 races in our car starts on the front row here alongside of Williams. So I think Albon has a fantastic chance of going for the lead early on this race. Then it's a question of what Hamilton, Verstappen can do. They're going to be worried about each other potentially as they're in a championship fight. And we are looking to make our way through. I'm going to be aiming for where Albon is, because despite the poor qualifying, I'm very confident in this strategy. We could save the tyres last season, make this aggressive one-stop work from mediums to softs. And I think we can do the same again, even though it's a bit sunnier this season. You can see on the bottom right, engine is orange. That's for our MGUK. Obviously, that was the part that failed last episode, and the one we've got in for this episode is a little bit worn, so I'm a little bit worried about that. But come on, surely we're not going to get back-to-back DNFs. It can't be. The F1 gods can't be that cruel at our home race as well. So let's just hope that doesn't play a factor into it, and we can concentrate on just going as fast as we can and making this aggressive strategy work. Here we go then to 5 red lights to the home race, the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. Lights out and away we go. It's initially a good getaway, but then we bogged down a little bit with some wheel spin. AlphaTauri on the inside that makes us go a little bit wide and off circuit. Yellow flags behind though, and maybe a good thing we went wide, because I think there was an incident at turn 1. Meanwhile, Magnussen still leads the way. Russell on the inside of Lando Norris there. We wanted to look around the outside of the McLaren, but we can't, because the yellows are out for a full course safety car for the incident at turn 1, and it is Latifi, the other Williams, who started pretty high, you know, qualified into Q2, but he hits the back of the Ferrari, who had a very good getaway, and Latifi then on the exit of turn 1 into Village looks to retire on the left hand side. So whilst you've got one Williams who got pole position and still leads this race, the other one, Latifi, is out of this Grand Prix. So very contrasting fortunes for the team at Williams, but right now, yeah, under safety car, it is all the same then. Magnussen ahead of Albon, then behind them, I believe it is Lewis Hamilton, it looks like, ahead of Ricciardo, then Verstappen, Russell, Norris, and then myself, of course, here in P8. Interesting to note, Norris and Ricciardo and Piastri behind me, all on the soft compounder tyre. So our McLaren and Ferrari trying to do basically my strategy, but the other way around. They're starting on softs, then going to mediums. I think the better way to do it is my way, because you're on lower fuel on the soft compound, so maybe you're pushing the tyres less into the ground, you know, the car's lighter, so maybe the tyre wear is not as bad. But of course, at the moment, initially, the McLarens may have better grip out the corners, but we're keeping up with Norris. We've got the better car on paper with the R&D chart, so let's keep the pressure on. Plenty of ERS usage as we go into the left-hander with Norris making a mistake. It's a big lock up there from our fellow Brit, and he's now behind us in P8. So we applied the pressure, and straight away the pressure was too much for Lando, and we're up into P7 now, looking in the back of George Russell in the Mercedes car, and I'm feeling good. We can feel there is speed, there is pace in this car, the pace that Albon is showing right now, pressurizing Magnussen for the race lead. So I am feeling good at this stage. You know, we're only going to get better as we go on through. I'm going to get more comfortable with this car around this track, and then at the last stint will be on a much faster tyre. But at the moment, looking to make moves early, because, you know, we can overtake these guys now. We may as well, but Verstappen being very, very good on the defence, aggressive as ever, as he is in real life. They're pretty much cutting us off. I had a little half look, but the space wasn't really there, and Verstappen, as you would expect, shut the door. But now, into Copse, we're going to make the lunge down the inside, keep tight on the apex. Verstappen lifted off a little bit to give us some room as well. So nice, respectful racing, side by side, nearly banging tyres as we're going to Maggots and Beckett's. But ultimately, we are going to have the Dutchman, the championship leader, remember, as it stands, and he's down to P6. And that is good news for Hamilton, who is up in P3 right now, as Albon has a little look on the outside, but Magnussen's holding his own. This is quite a view here. The Williams holding its own in the lead there. Albon with a little frustrating look, but nothing comes of it, as now lap 6, we close up to Ricciardo in Village, and we're looking to make a move move on the outside of the left-hander. A very, very unusual place to make an overtake, but I believe Ricciardo's tyres are maybe now going off. 6 laps is about maybe the region where the soft tyre stops being better than the mediums, and you can probably see, you saw it right there because we walked around the outside of Ricciardo, but we have a little look on the outside of Hamilton as well, but instead just setting ourselves up for that extra acceleration. They're straightening up the car before Hamilton could on the outside now of Kopp, so we had it on the inside, this time on the outside of Hamilton. We go off circuit there, so we lift off a bit and we let Hamilton get alongside us again, because that would have been a bit unfair to overtake him having used a bit more of the circuit. But in the end, we will finish off the move in the inside, in the middle of Magnus and Beckett's. And whilst we get into third place, Albon immediately is looking to make a move for the lead on the inside now. He had a look at this same place on the last lap, but this time he has the overwhelming speed with DRS to get into the lead of another Grand Prix. I don't want to say it, but dare I say, could Albon have a very good chance of winning 3 on the bounce? Well, I'm going to try my best to stop that, as we're up into P3 now, so you can see very much so we have the best car. I'm able to get back into a podium position from P9. Albon's into the lead. Our car right now, at this moment in Season 2, is doing very, very well. Meanwhile, there's a great scrap going on between two fellow compatriots, Russell versus Norris here in the McLaren versus Mercedes. The McLaren, the better car these days, and those two are really jockeying hammer and tong for half the lap now, battling away for what is going to be around, P7 or 8. But back to our race then, and we're right up the back of Kevin Magnussen. A little bit of a twitchy rear end there from K-Mag in the Williams, feeling the pressure maybe. He's already been done by Albon, and now we'll go down the inside of Kops. He's going to give us actually quite a good fight though on the exit. The Williams actually has some okay grip, it would seem, mid-corner, and we're side by side with Kevin Magnussen in the Williams, side by side, and he's actually re-overtaken us. We couldn't make the lunge there. Far too dangerous to get our nose in, stuck in the middle of Magda Beckett's. That could have ended badly. Instead, deploying a bit of patience here in this race, because I know we can do better than this as we get up into P2. I know our race today is with Albon. It is the Canadian Grand Prix all over again. We could be fighting our teammate for first place. I just hope, unlike Canada, our engine does not go pop as we're about to catch him up to make that fight proper, as obviously in Canada we led, he overtook us, we were about to close back up to him, I felt, to re-overtake him for the lead, and that's when it all went wrong. So let's hope the engine holds through. Meanwhile, behind, Magnussen now just falling down the order. Maybe Hamilton goes up into third place. This is crucial for his fight versus Verstappen in the championship. Ricciardo is in for his pit stop in the background there. Of course, both McLarens on soft, so that's why Ricciardo's in now. Lando continues on, but he'll be in on the very next lap, I assume. So the McLaren's going in early, and I assume for the medium compound to do my strategy just the other way around. So Verstappen up into P5 now. He'll be looking to try and get past Magnussen so he can actually have a go at his championship rival, Lewis Hamilton. Meanwhile, we are within 1 second and looking to try and chase after our teammate, the race leader, Albon, who is in the finest form of his life. 91 rated. He's just come off the back of 2 wins in a row. He's going to be a hard cookie to crack, but we're going to try it, and we've got the home crowd cheering us both on, really, because obviously Albon tie Brit, so maybe the crowd will be a bit torn of who to support here today, but we're going to go for it on the inside. This is going to be so bloody close. We have to lift off a bit, of course, giving our teammate a bit more respect than we would any other driver on this grid. You don't want to crash with your teammate. That's the #1 rule, as we're side by side through Maggots and Beckett's, and we're still going at it. We've got the lead though. Albon's behind, but now he'll tuck in and get DRS, I think. Will he? No, we've got DRS, but even with DRS, Albon's still there on the left-hand side. He's in the mirror now, so he can take the next corner and remain in the race lead. But Albon, for sure, is going to come back at us. He's not going to make it that easy. He didn't at Canada. He's not going to make it that easy here today either, because he can sense also the win. A third win in a row, a home Grand Prix win for him as well. Here he goes on the inside. This is a wonderful onboard, as you can see how close he is getting with this little dive of his. and he's having a look round the outside now of Luffield. Will he go right round the outside of us? I think he might, despite us being quite early on throttle, deploying ERS all the way down this stretch of road. Albon is still on the left-hand side, and he's actually done us round the outside of Copse. An unbelievable display of driving here from Alexander Albon. He's got so much confidence, it would seem, in our car, and he's back up into the lead of this British Grand Prix. But we're going to come back at him. We've got that second bite of the DRS now here, down towards Stowe. Bit of ERS play as well, pulling in, then pulling out onto the right-hand side. Down the inside we go, and keeping faith that Albon is not going to turn into us. We're not going to make contact here, where we're not going to, as he backs out of it, and we get into the lead once more. But it's literally nose to tail as Magnussen tries to re-overtake Hamilton for third place. The Williams attacking the Mercedes car, and then side by side, almost through the final corner. It's nearly just about 3 wide for a split second there into turn 1 as Verstappen tries to join the party as we lock up, as we defend the inside line for Village. We lock up, and Albon has switched back to us. He's on the right hand side having a look. Ultimately, he doesn't actually get the overtake done, but he was bloody close, and what it's done is it's set himself up for this straight now, because we are tight on the corner exit, and Albon blast past with DRS open. We try to squeeze him, we try to fight him a bit, and we are going to continue to try and fight him on the outside here. Can we go right around the outside and do what Albon did to us? Yes, we can. This is supreme racing here today around Silverstone. So much fun. But Albon ultimately just has a bit more pace to keep ahead into Copse. We're a bit wide with the dirty air, and so we have to kind of recompose and go again maybe on the next back straight into Stowe. Meanwhile, Magnussen has overtaken Hamilton. We missed when that happened. That must have happened into Village. Magnussen back into P3 ahead of Hamilton. Russell has overtaken Verstappen, so Verstappen's gone down to P6 then, instead of being right behind Lewis Hamilton, his championship contender. So that'll be good news for the Brits as we now push on. Albon, he comes in. Hamilton, is he in? I think he is, as Russell stays out with K-Mag and Verstappen and myself, of course. Remember, I am going a lot longer though, a lot longer, because I'm going onto the soft compound tyre. But Magnussen, Russell and Verstappen opting to stay out for at least one lap on their mediums, because the hard compound, which all these guys are going on to, is not a great race tyre for most circuits, especially around here. I feel like it just takes so long to warm up and rubber in that it means the two McLarens are ahead of Albon and Hamilton. Remember, the McLarens pitting a bit earlier. They're going on from the soft to the medium tyre strategy. So this medium tyre, you know, their fresher mediums effectively were just so much better than the worn out mediums of Albon and Hamilton, whilst they're fighting Magnussen, fighting me, that it's meant that the McLarens have got, you know, a couple of seconds on them in the entire pit strategy. So that's going to be very interesting though, if the McLaren's tyres then fall off at the end and those guys can start catching them, as well as us, remember, as well, as now Verstappen comes out the pits and Albon makes a fantastic move on the outside there. Verstappen on colder, hard tyres, and that's what I'm talking about. They take so long to warm up that Albon just made a sensational move around the outside of Verstappen, but Verstappen's come out ahead of Hamilton though. So that's your example of just how much better even older mediums are versus the hards, that Verstappen went one lap longer on worse mediums and actually gained time on Hamilton. Russell even jumped Albon, you can see, in P5 there, and the two McLarens, they're a worry for everyone now in this race, because they're miles ahead of all of us who started on the medium tyres. And now Lando Norris is going for a move on his teammate on the outside of Stowe. The two McLarens make contact, tyre banging there between the two papaya machines, but Lando Norris gets up into second place, which will ultimately turn into first place. So that could be a crucial move for the Brit. That could be Lando leading this race and having a very good chance of winning this race later on, I might say, because we're going to come out around where Russell is, and that's 5 to 6 seconds back from Ricciardo. So the McLarens have somehow ended up being the most dominant team here today, as we now see Verstappen and Hamilton going at it. Hamilton trying to get back ahead of Verstappen. The two are now going wheel to wheel. Your two championship contenders in the first two positions in the standings right now are now head to head, side by side onto a new lap. Lap 18, Hamilton the outside, Verstappen on the inside, and the Red Bull will maintain the P6 for now. But Lewis is giving it everything there to try and get back ahead of the Red Bull car. Meanwhile for us, lap 19, it's now time to come in from those mediums onto the soft tyres. But I want to point out, I thought I was so smart saving a set of soft tyres. What I didn't realise is the set I saved was the set you get given for free for Q3, and therefore is not available to choose as a tyre. I think that's how it works, because when I looked at my dashboard on the heads-up display, I've only got used sets of soft tyres left. So I should have actually used the set I got given in Q3 and saved the set that I actually ended up using in Q3, if that makes any kind of sense, basically. So that is rather annoying, but to be fair, we've done very well to take those mediums 19 laps, because now I've only got 6 laps on these soft tyres. They're used, but 6 laps on used softs, that'll be okay. That'll be okay. Remember, McLaren, they went for 8 to 9 laps on the soft, so we should be just about okay. But we're going to come out, side by side with Albon into Village for P5, and you can see the cold tyres not helping out, because even on the hards, Albon is able to get ahead of us just because I need to warm up these tyres, basically. But we know the task now. We're in P5, we're the only person on softs. So we get our head down, we have to look to overtake Albon and Russell, and then, well, then we'll see what we can do, if we can do anything versus those McLarens. But we go and overtake Albon with a big dive into Stowe, and now we'll catch up to George Russell just as we go into Luffield. Can we make an outside move, actually, maybe at Luffield with the grip we've got on the soft compound tyre? Looking to dance our way around the outside, try and feather the throttle, plant the power now, and then use the ERS on exit to mount a challenge on George Russell, our fellow Brit. Side by side into Cops on the outside. Russell's got a decent amount of grip, but we are able to get the move done eventually on the exit when we plant the power, and we're up into P3. But we've got now 6.6 seconds to Ricciardo. Meanwhile, a fight for Hamilton versus Verstappen. Maybe Verstappen locks up, though. Oh, Verstappen's made a mistake. Another high-profile error. Another lock-up for the Dutchman. The reigning double-time world champion locks up and goes wide, and nearly actually almost takes out Magnussen there. But you saw there, there was no funny business, just Verstappen just locked up as soon as Hamilton crept up behind him in the mirrors. So very, very peculiar. Hamilton up into P6 and Verstappen down to P7. Back to the front, lap 24. Lando Norris leads the way still. There's 1-2 for McLaren, but he gets held up by a lapped car of the Alfa Romeo. He had to lift off on the exit of Luffield, and that will invite Daniel Ricciardo to maybe make a late lunge. Ricciardo goes for it. McLaren on McLaren. There's some contact into Cops, and the two McLarens are squabbling for first place. Ricciardo with the late lunge, and it's fantastic battling. They're side by side, wheel to wheel, and Lando Norris will maintain the lead. But they fought so much that look at the top left, look at the time ladder. We've gone from 4 seconds or something to 1.7 seconds. The lapped car and then them squabbling for first place amongst each other may just invite us in to get amongst it. I don't know if we can win this race, but could we maybe get Ricciardo there in second place if he's not careful? Meanwhile, Albon is being attacked by George Russell. Our car, well, at least Albon's car, falling away a bit on the hard compound. Meanwhile, we're gaining time on the softs. Russell side by side with his old pal Albono, and the two are going to battle right up until turn 1. And it looks like Albon, though, will actually get back ahead for P4 just about. But no, Russell comes back with a dive into Village. We've had some excellent racing here at Silverstone. My, oh my. Russell tried it. It was a really late lunge there from Georgie Boy into Village, but ultimately Albon will maintain P4. But for us, look at that now. Look at the time gaps. We're 4 tenths behind Ricciardo, who is half a second behind Lando Norris. And oh, that Alfa Romeo is causing even further issues as he holds up Russell and Hamilton, having gone off circuit. I don't know who it is. It may be Felipe Drogovic, our old teammate. Our old teammate from Season 1 may have just held up the McLarens enough and forced them into fighting, because remember, Ricciardo wouldn't have gone for that move had Lando not been held up by Drogovic. So Drogovic may have just helped us in this entire race in a funny way, because we're here now with DRS as we go on towards the last lap of this Grand Prix, looking to try and pressurise Ricciardo to maybe just salvage a second place here against this dominant McLaren as Ricciardo locks up under pressure for the second time. We see a McLaren locking up ahead of us as they see us in the mirrors. This time, it's Daniel Ricciardo. We are up into second place, and now we are half a second behind Lando Norris. Remember, Lando does not have DRS to help him out. We do. Could we do the unthinkable? Could we do this on the last lap of the Grand Prix at our home race? Could we win our first ever Formula 1 Grand Prix? Alex Albon, our teammate, he's won the last 2 races back to back. He's really put us to shame. We could have fought for the win last time out in Canada, but the engine blew up before we had a chance. A poor qualifying on Saturday put us 9th on the grid, but we fought back with this aggressive strategy. And could this be redemption today? Here we go into the final couple of corners. Dive down the inside of Lando Norris. He's going to squeeze us, but on the exit we have the better grip on the soft compound. Lando, though, will dive back down the inside into the final 3 corners. Here we go, as we're going to be able to nip ahead and stay ahead and win our first ever F1 race on F1 22. And it comes at the home race. The British Grand Prix is ours, and we have finally won in this car. Oh my, what a race, what a race.
There's a few disappointed faces up and down the pit wall after that one, but not here. They've secured a phenomenal victory. Tell me, Ant, how did they manage to achieve this win?
I think we'll chalk this one up to a deft touch on the brake pedal. That's allowed them to challenge down the inside into the braking zones, and ultimately, if you do that often enough, you end up winning the race. It was great to watch as well, though, wasn't it? Forget strategy, forget tyre management. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned scrap?
A show-stopping performance from the 3 drivers approaching the podium right now. It's been an interesting Grand Prix, that's for sure.
Absolutely unbelievable. Biblical scenes as we win our first race on the last lap of the Grand Prix. But everything fell together a bit. You know, that aggressive strategy on the soft compound allowed us to have the tyre to compete. And then that lapped car, our old teammate, Felipe Drogovic, held up Lando, allowed Ricciardo to dive down the inside. Then the 2 McLarens just fought themselves too much and invited us in. Ricciardo bottled under pressure, and then we were there with DRS. Lando unable to defend without DRS. To be fair, it didn't even come down to DRS in the end, because I only just about caught him. I actually just had to brake late and try and force the move, and a little twitch on the rear end there, because his mediums were going off a bit more than my softs. He did dive back down the inside into that final chicane, so he gave it a real good go, and, you know, easily could have been him winning still, but we're able to hold our own in the last 2 corners and win the British Grand Prix, win our first race. But that makes it 3 wins in a row for aarava Archer Racing, from Baku to Canada to Britain. Absolutely amazing. Amazing stuff. That means we're back up into P4 in the championship. Of course, that DNF last episode didn't help us. Look at the standings, though, between Verstappen and Hamilton there. Hamilton finishing ahead of Verstappen today means there's only 1 point in it, just over the halfway mark of this season. So Verstappen versus Hamilton 2.0 is very much still on, but after having won 3 races in a row, Can anyone stop our team? Like, are me and Albon destined to get into this title fight? Definitely in the Constructors, you got to say yeah, because we're only 1 point behind Mercedes of taking the lead of the Constructors Championship table for the very first time in our history on this game. So, I don't know about the drivers yet, but the Constructors, we are here. We have arrived, and our car doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. Depends on the AI upgrades coming through in the next few episodes. But what a race for us. What an episode for us. Guys, if you have enjoyed that one, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.